Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Be with you. It's that time of the year where we're taking a long, hard look at what the seeds will be. I'll say this, Joe Lenardi, Mike DeCourcy, both friends, right? And my respect for each is, geez, I think I've known Mike a little bit longer than Joe. They both have Alabama as a 1. Now, I know Tennessee didn't help itself last night by losing to Ole Miss, and I think they got beaten rather handily. So that didn't help. But they both have them as a 1. To me, the ones are whatever order you want. Duke, Auburn, Houston. I think they're ones pretty much no matter what happens. They could each lose in the opening round of their respective conference tournaments when they finally get a chance to play, because they won't be playing in the opening round. Yeah. They'll get byes, but still be ones. What the three of them have in common, they may play a little different styles, but all three are very, very good, 2 excellent defensive teams. Houston's defense is exemplary. Auburn's defense is really good. And Duke, everyone thinks of Duke as a scoring team, and a scoring team. And guess what? You watch them play, their defense is really, really good. So I think those are the three that are locked in here. The SEC is having one of the truly great years in college basketball. I mean, not just a good year, but a great year in college basketball, to their credit. Over and over again. Just playing really, really well. And that's the part that I find to be impressive, is how well they have played to this point. Every team, it's a dog-eat-dog world down there right now. And I'll give you an example. Texas A&M beating Auburn the other night. I watched that game. You just kind of, and believe me, I have not seen Auburn play in person. Well, obviously, those guys for Texas A&M, I've seen them play in person each of the last 2 years. Right? Those are a lot of the same guys. That's still Wade Taylor out there. That's, I mean, that's every time I turn around, I go, well, he's still with him. He's still with him. Anderson's still with him. It's like, okay. But you look at where they are right now. Auburn obviously is 15-2, so they'll be the 1 seed for the SEC tournament. See, what's going to happen with the SEC is this, and it's going to happen with the Big Ten as well. The conference tournament could allow somebody to get in because of this. All the quad 1 opportunities. Everywhere, because these are neutral games. So neutral games, quad 1 neutral or top 50. Right? So they're all going to be neutral games. These teams are all in the top 50. Uh-huh. So if you can somehow sneak your way through a couple of games, like say Georgia can win a couple of games, they'd be quad 1 wins. I'm not saying Georgia's going to get there. They're a 7-10 team overall, but 7-10 in the conference, but they're 19-11 overall. Right? Texas has got problems. Oklahoma has problems. LSU has big problems, and South Carolina. Now, believe it or not, South Carolina, they're 12-18. You want to know how strong the SEC is? They're 12-18. In NIT bracketology, they'd be a 4 seed. Because of how strong the SEC is. Kentucky came out early in the season. I give Mark Pope a lot of credit. He put a lot of parts together and got off to a great start. then as the season has gone along, to no surprise, once you start getting some video on some teams and you really start scouting them, and when you get into conference play, you're really well scouted. They have found holes in what Kentucky does. Right? That's only because of the scouting part. And look, you can only mask your deficiencies so long. And Mark Pope, I think, is a good coach. He's done a good job with them. To me, if I had to pick a game where it shook their confidence a little bit, it had to be the Arkansas game. The big deal about Calipari coming back, and it wasn't just Calipari coming back. It was also the 3 Kentucky transfers, Wagner and those guys that all came back for Arkansas. And they only won the game. It kind of went back and forth for the first 25 minutes. Hefner's still there. This is when Penn State played him in the NCAA. Hefner's still there. This is when Penn State played him in the NCAAs. Let alone the Orlando tournament last year I did. Those guys are all still there. I mean, that is an experienced team. And they're a good team. The SEC is just a deep conference. Now, the Alabama thing is interesting. In watching Alabama, they lost by 3, and they lost the game, by the way, to Tennessee. They lost that game. Yep. They lost the game by fouling late, bad offensive possessions. When they had a chance to win the game when the game was tied, they had a freshman taking the ball in, and guess what? He didn't get the ball. It was a 5-second violation. They still had 2 timeouts remaining. Okay. Like, what are you doing? And they lost. Then they went out and they played Florida. They lost that game. I mean, you do know that Alabama, which right now is listed as a 1 seed, they play at Auburn. If they don't win on Saturday, you know what that means? Yeah. They'd be 0-3 in the month of March. That doesn't scream 1 seed to me.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Okay? That doesn't scream 1 seed.
No, I mean, look at Tennessee last night. They had no business losing that game. That was one that they just flat out blew.
Sure. Right.
And that's another reason why.
Right.
I'm just not sure Alabama should be the 1 seed, but.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Alabama. Okay, if you're talking about them as a 1 seed, see, at this point, now you've got to start splitting hairs on seed lines here. Okay? And this is where I split the hairs on it. If you are Alabama at this point, and you look at their last, let's see, 6 games. Now, it's obviously they're playing in a great conference. But in their last 6 games, they're 3-3. In fact, it's worse. They're 2-4. They're 2-4 their last 6 games. They're 2-4. Now, have the losses been to number 1 Auburn? Yes. Number 15 Missouri in Columbia? Yes. Okay. Beat Kentucky. Okay. Beat Mississippi State. Then, of course, the Tennessee and Florida losses. So they've lost 4 of their last 6 games. That doesn't scream 1 seed.
No.
Again, I'm talking about now. We know the body of work is great for Alabama. Body of work's great. Okay? So that's not an issue here. Now I'm trying to parse at the end to see who should be a 1 versus a 2. And Joe and Mike both have Alabama on the 1 line. Now, that's in part because of what Tennessee did, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because Tennessee went out, lost the game. I got it. All right? And Tennessee, again, at home, they stole the thing. There's no getting around it. They stole the game. But last night, they go to Ole Miss. They lost by 2. And they lost that game last night.
Just blew it.
Okay?
They had no business losing that game.
Right? They lost the game.
Yeah.
See, and that's what's weird about this season. Let's go national for a moment. We've talked about Penn State being, 1-8 in games decided by 5 points or less. And Michigan's won 11 games by 4 points or less. Well, exactly what do you think Duke's record is in games decided by 5 points or less. Do you follow the game? Do you know?
Yeah, I do, but I couldn't tell you their record.
Oh, you're just killing it. Every time I turn around. Right, okay. Okay. This is a ball. Okay.
Not to be confused with a pumpkin at Halloween time.
Okay. Let's start with the basics. Is it stuffed or inflated? I mean, let's. No. Duke's 1-3 in games decided by 5 points or less. There are a lot of teams that are like that in this league. Like Penn State's going to play Wisconsin on Saturday.
Yep.
Wisconsin's had a terrific year. They're 2-3 in games decided by 5 points or less. Like it's like there's been no correlation, but it does go back to the point I've made many times about this. Okay, the good teams aren't in close games. So in other words, Duke is 1-3 in games decided by 5 points or less.
Yeah.
Well, the other 20-some-odd games, they blew the other team out. There's a reason.
Also beat Auburn.
Right. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But that's not my point. My point is the really good teams aren't in close games.
Yeah.
Okay? When they win big.
Yeah. And they're close games. At least 2 of the 3 were Kansas, Kentucky, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Champions Classic against Kentucky and then lost by 3 to Kansas.
Right.
Yep.
But they're playing Clemson. They lost that game too.
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg's going in the bucket, fell down.
Yep.
Okay. I will say this. When the SEC gets, and the same thing with the Big Ten, when they get to the tournament, and especially the SEC, there are going to be spots open on the floor that haven't been open for 2.5 months. Because these guys are up in the grill, guarding, and the whole deal. It's like, see, that's what makes Houston a tough out. If Houston can find enough offense, their defense is really good. They're in your face kind of, and their length. The question with Houston is, do they have enough offense? I heard somebody laughing today about UConn being an 8 or a 9. He says, imagine seeing them in the second round. Excuse me, the NCAA tournament has dramatically changed over the years. Used to be if you were a top 4 seed and probably in the top 8, so you're 1 through 8, so you're 1 or a 2 seed, your pathway into the Sweet 16 was pretty good. It really has changed, I'd say, in the last 15 years, where if you're a 1 or 2 seed, the easy round is obviously the opening round. The second round, now you're facing somebody. Because the depth of college basketball, and especially now in the portal era, where you have older teams all over the place. You have older teams all over the place.
Sure.
I mean, like I told you, when it came to freshmen in the Big Ten, who were the freshmen? Derek Queen of Maryland, terrific player. Right? Mobley of Ohio State, terrific shooter. Jace Richardson has really come on and is fulfilling all the promise they thought he would have at Michigan State. And Harper and Bailey at Rutgers, where, to be honest with you, they've kind of spun their wheels. I mean, you got 2 NBA guys out there, and you're not winning 20-some-odd games? Really? You got a problem. But those are the freshmen in the league. Then you have this one. Who's the top freshman for Wisconsin? Janicki. It's a redshirt freshman. He's also a walk-on. He is a preferred walk-on. You're finding this all over the country. There are not a lot of freshmen making an impact on the game, Cooper Flagg aside. Cooper Flagg is a great, great player. So he's the freshman extraordinaire. But I just talked about Texas A&M. They got 8 seniors. It's point guard for Tennessee is the same guy they had last year.
Yep. A lot of Alabama's what you had last year. except for the
freshman. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he played well in the game against Tennessee, but he made a big time mistake at the end. Like, okay. But the SEC has had great basketball this season, without a question. And it's deep. There are quad one opportunities in the tournament coming up for everybody. Obviously, the group from 8 up is playing for seeding. From 9 down, they're playing to make sure they're in the tournament. That's where it is. Big Ten, same way. By the way, I do not subscribe to the theory that at all that the Indiana players are playing for their coach. No. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Nope.
No. Now, it's going to be played out that way. Oh, yeah. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Maybe you spent a little more time than 10 minutes in a meeting room. Okay. Yeah. Local restaurants opening up, and they're looking for hospitality service people. What? I'm just trying to help you out here. God, so touchy. So touchy. Look, a gift horse right in the mouth. Okay, now I want to get into the Penn State part of it and all this. Okay. I am somebody who has, because I'm around him all the time and I'm at practices, I see what he's trying to do, how it's run, the whole deal. I have a lot of confidence in Mike Rhodes. So let's just establish that right out of the gate. I think he knows what he wants to do, and I think he knows how to get there. All right? He has been there and done that everywhere. I don't care what he did at Randolph-Macon. What he did with Rice was remarkable. In his third year, he finally, they won 24 games in his third year. At Rice? Rice? That's what I said about Steve Spurrier when he got Duke to a bowl game. I went, oh, how did he do that? When Larry Brown got the Clippers to the playoffs. You know how hard that is?
Uh-huh.
This
Especially
is back
at that time.
I'm talking about back in the day.
Yeah.
Right? Duke back in the day. Like, Duke got to the All-American Bowl in Birmingham? Really?
Yeah.
Right? Like, Mike got Rice to 24 wins. What? Then, of course, everything he did at VCU. He gets in late. He tries to put together whatever he can. They finished strong last year. This year, they got off to a great start. They started the year, in my opinion, and when I'm talking about start out the year, I'm talking about I'm going back to the practices in the summertime. Okay? I'm looking out there, I'm going, man, he's got 9 guys. All right, 9 guys. Then Eli Rice went down. Like, all right. But, it was the summertime, so I'm thinking, okay, let's just, he'll be all right once the season comes around. All right. And when the season came around, he still wasn't ready, and then they finally thought he was, and he got in there for 5 minutes in the game, and it's like then he had to be shut down. Now, Eli is very close to starting to work out again. But suddenly you went from 9 to 8. Okay? Then Kachi got sick. A couple different times. So now you went from 9 to 7.5. You're like, okay. And then Puff got hurt. and has been out pretty close to not quite half the season, but getting there. Okay. And now you're at 6.5. Now you're saying, well, what about the development of the freshmen? Are they a little bit better than they were? Yeah, but it's taking a while for them to get there. It just is. So you go from 9 in the summer, where I'm thinking this is an NCAA tournament team. I'm watching the preseason. I'm thinking, it still feels like an NCAA tournament team. All right. I didn't like how the first half against Rutgers played out. Like, come on, if you're an NCAA tournament team, you don't turn in that kind of 20 minutes, right? Regardless of the talent level on the other end, which, obviously, Harper had a good night. Bailey was okay.
Bailey was okay, yeah.
Right. But, then they beat Northwestern, tough, hard-fought game. I'm like going, hey, it's the Big Ten. You gutted it out one at home. That Indiana game bugs me. First of all, and this is what's hurt Penn State a lot, 3-point defense has hurt Penn State in conference play. And they're going to face the number 1 3-point percentage team in conference play on Saturday. That, against Michigan State, killed itself from the 3-point line. They were 5 of 22 or some bad number, maybe even worse than that, 5 of 27 in 3. They hit some threes last night. But they were hurt by that. But again, you're trying to massage minutes out of freshmen here and there to kind of keep guys fresh enough. But at the same time, when they get in there, one of the problems they've had when they've gotten in, I don't care whether it's Miles Goodman or Dom Stewart or Javin Carter, when they've gotten in there, the problem has been not what they can do offensively. They'll take a couple shots when they're out there, and it's not like Carter and Stewart aren't capable of hitting shots. That part's fine. It's the defensive part. You can see teams right away going right at them, and it's just that takes so much more time, a lot more time. So he's been trying to navigate this part with essentially 6.5 guys at this point, because Kachi can give him some minutes here and there, but he's not quite playing to the level I think he's capable of. And that means you can't press as often. People have said, well, they've caught on to the press. That's true. People have. So what you do is you adjust. Except you have to have enough people to adjust. Domino effect. Here's the other part in big picture. You can't make your coaching job a revolving door. It is easy to sit there and say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. That's easy. What's difficult is having a backbone. In this decade, just this decade, Mike's the 4th coach Penn State's had. Okay? 2020, the coach was Pat Chambers. In 21, the coach was Jim Ferry. In 22 and 23, the coach was Micah Shrewsbury. Now, 24-25, the coach has been Mike Rhodes. Now, how are you supposed to have any kind of opportunity to solidify a program when you have had that kind of revolving door? You can't. Now, am I saying, well, let him coach for 10, 15 years? You have to put together a track record. But you have to give somebody a chance to put together a track record. You have to. And we'll see how the offseason plays out. But when I'm looking at the track record, I'm looking at a track record of a guy that has 400-plus wins in his career. I'm looking at a guy who has a track record who's gotten to the NCAA tournament, who's won conference championships, and is surrounded by a staff that has also done the same thing. Brent Scott's been with him. Jamal Brunt's been with him. Now they've added in Joe Crispin. Jimmy Martelli was with him. Jimmy got moved up, right, when he got here. Stability is an important part of all of this. I realize there is a lack of patience. And I know people over the years have justifiably accused me of being too patient when it comes to talking about coaches. I understand that. That would be a criticism of me because I've talked patience before. Okay? But there's a reason why. I see, I have confidence in people when I'm around them a lot and can see what they are doing and also the obstacles they are facing. One thing that happens when you do get transfers, and this is everybody, you get some transfers that step in, they're terrific. Remember, you inherit their history and you inherit their habits. Some habits, like Puff Johnson's habits, are exemplary. So you inherited Puff Johnson's habits. And what you inherited was, knows how to play. Communicator. Understands the value of talk on the floor. All right? Knows where he's supposed to be, why he's supposed to be. If he's out of position, you tell him, and he looks at you and goes, yeah, that's on me, I know that. All right? He's that kind of player. Is he a superstar? No, he's not a superstar, but he's a really good player that knows how to play the game, and he does have the ability to make other players around him better. So you inherited his habits. They're really good ones. There are other players you inherit their habits, and let's face it, sometimes you're inheriting somebody. I'm not going to, don't start, I don't want anybody making assumptions, but sometimes you inherit guys where their game is broken, their confidence is broken,
sure.
Right? I mean, you don't know,
Absolutely.
Right? So you don't know. And so that's one of the difficulties in this era for every coach of bringing players together. That's why I go back to Texas A&M. I mean, to his credit down there, I'm not the biggest Buzz Williams fan on the face of the earth, but he's got 8 seniors on that team. And he's had some continuity. Coleman's still there. Anderson's still there. Wade Taylor's still there. Those are guys that I saw in 2023, and those are guys I saw again in 2024. And, plus a couple of guys that come off the bench, that were coming off the bench, are still doing that for him. He's got some continuity in the program. You have to give a coach a chance to get continuity within his program. And people have talked about the end of games. And I understand that when you're 1-8, end of games comes up. Always does.
Absolutely.
I don't look at it that way. Right? Now, part of it is when you're broadcasting the game, I'm broadcasting the entire game. All right? So that's why I talk about, hey, you've got to win the middle 8. You've got to be somebody that after the under 4, close out a half, boom, come out of the locker room, start the second half. I feel like it sets a tone. I talk about the under 12 to the under 8 all the time. And the under 12 to the under 8, when you're done at the under 8, what kind of game do you have? Did the other team close the gap? Did you expand the lead? Did you close the gap? You know what I mean? Or did they expand the lead? Right? Now, with under 8 minutes to go, usually about 7.5 minutes to go, okay, what kind of game do I have? Now we get to the last 4 minutes because you can win games in the first half. You can also lose games in the first half. Penn State, for example, against Washington had a 13-point lead. Essentially, where they lost the game was closing out the first half. A 13-point lead became 4. That's that middle 8. Okay? The game against Minnesota, here, Penn State's up, 10, 25-15? Right? Minnesota scores the last 6 points of the first half. It's 25-21 at the break. Like, okay. Those set the tone for what we saw the rest of the game. So it's not just the last. There's a journey to get to the last 4 minutes, and people have talked about last possessions. Penn State's had last possessions, and Mike has a veteran point guard out there, and he has a fair amount of seniors out there, and he wants the other team on their heels. You play it differently based on who your personnel is. Right? If he has freshmen out there, all freshmen, he's probably calling timeouts and diagramming and doing whatever. Now, the problem is you've seen it a lot. I have no idea what they're saying to, Chris Collins, they've got, 7 losses, I think, 5 points or less. But in North Carolina, I think, has 6. And North Carolina, by the way, has the exact same quad 1 record as Penn State. Same. No difference. And they've got Duke this weekend. You can't make your coaching job a revolving door. I know it used to be under the old system. I always talked about you have to give coaches 5-6 years. Well, always have talked about that. I still feel the same way. That part hasn't changed for me. Because one of the worst things you can do with a program is that you make your coaching job a revolving door, which brings with it a rebuild every single time. It brings with it rebuilding all the time. Okay, so let's make a move. Okay, well, what kind of right? When he walked in the door, he had 3 guys. Mm-hmm. Okay, the team meeting didn't take long. Let's take attendance. Well, that took seconds. 3 guys. Because again, the revolving door. Now you're starting from, Mike essentially had to start from scratch. He had to really put together, with all due respect, almost like an expansion team. Now, you can get veterans in the portal, and he was able to get some veterans in the portal. Zach Hicks has been a really good player for him. Ace Baldwin, Nick Kern. DeMarco's really come on for him. Getting a guy last year for this season in Yannick, he's been a breath of fresh air. I'll say this. The development last year of Qudus Wahab, if you were to have seen him in the summer versus the one you saw in February and March last year, you wonder why he came back and worked out at Penn State instead of working out at Georgetown or Maryland? Because he knew this is where he made his greatest improvement as a player. And he'll tell you that. Where he was in the summer of 2023 to the guy we saw in February and March in 2024, you'd be like, whoa. That's because of him, and also because of the coaching he got, the development. Now, Q put the work in. But you can't make your job a revolving door. By making your job a revolving door, you now put yourself in rebuild mode all the time. No. Okay? That's why I know you go through a tough stretch, starting with the game at the Palestra. Penn State couldn't hit threes on a team that's not and Indiana's still not a good three-point shooting team.
Nope.
Explain to me why they've got 19 threes made against Penn State in the 2 games. I can't, Dick and I kept waiting in each game for them to miss 5 or 6 in a row. Because that's who they are. Okay, you got to understand who they are. And, really? And Penn State, in my opinion, Penn State should have won both those games, right? Now, were some of those threes open? Sure, but there's Trey Galloway was 4 for his last 25 in threes, and you know how highly I think of Trey Galloway as a basketball player. I really like him a lot. But that's not his forte. He'd been 4 for his last 25. So, of course, I don't mind if he's open on the first one. He's not hitting him. Oh, wait. All right, well, give him another shot out there. He hit it again. Great. It's just that's the way sometimes these crazy seasons go. There are people that are, and I understand because they're passionate, they want to win. So I completely understand that. They want to win. All right. And they feel like if they make a change, this will be like push that button and, we'll start winning. All right. To me, that's not how it works.
No.
Your job can't be a revolving door. What you need to have is a rock-solid head coach, and I'm telling you in no uncertain terms, Penn State already has that in Mike Rhodes. And I'll go to the wall defending that part, that Mike strategically, passionately, intelligently, right, as a person, this guy is, okay? He checks every box for me, okay? Now you've got to be able to, through recruiting, which they're doing. I know they've got a lot of confidence. Now he's just going to be a freshman next year, but Caden Mingo, to go with others. Mike's like what they've done. Now you got to go through, then there's going to be roster retention. Make sure you've got the funds for roster retention, and then make sure you've got the funds to do something in the portal that makes your team better. That's what this era is all about. These guys are working on it all the time. All right? But to me, one of the worst things you can do with a program is to take an established winner like Mike and say, well, 2 years didn't get it done. Now, that's not happening here. Pat's already expressed that, right? An established winner like that, and then you make your job a revolving door. And when you make it your job, when you take an established winner that's so highly respected in the industry because he's won everywhere, what does that tell everybody about your job? And when you make it a revolving door, all you do is that kind of mentality of making it a revolving door brings with it instability over and over again. Let's start over again. Well, guess what? Penn State went through an interim, then had to start over again. And then that coach left, and Penn State had to start over again. Okay, that's the decade of the 20s. That's the decade of the 20s.
Sure.
You make a great run, 2020, then what I think it was it 5 years ago this week? 5 years ago this week, right? Maybe it's this weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty close. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right?
Where you had,
everything gets shut down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was like March 10th, somewhere around there. Yep.
Then, okay, now you go 8 months later, you change the coach, and you do it right before the season. Now you go through an interim coach. Now you're in complete flux. You already were in transition anyway because the seniors on that team had transitioned out. But you still had guys like Lundy and Dredd are still there and so forth. And now you go through an interim situation, and Jim did a heck of a job with it. But then you start over again, and Micah comes in. Now Mike is able to keep Lundy. He's able to keep Dredd, able to keep John Harrar.
Yeah.
Okay? He's able to keep all those guys. And then the second year they get to the NCAA tournament, right? And again, who's playing big roles? Lundy. I mean, who makes the basket to put Penn State in front with 3.5 minutes to play against Texas on the steal? Lundy. Who made the threes against Texas A&M? Dredd. Guys that were with the program the whole time. Now, at least he had a foundation to work with to then bring in a Jalen Pickett, eventually bringing in Andrew Funk, and so forth. All right? When Mike came in, he had 3 guys. 3. And only one of them was playing a few minutes. That's it. Talk about starting from scratch and doing it late in the game.
Yeah.
You have to give people a chance to build something. And Mike is the kind of guy that doesn't like cutting corners. Mike is the kind of guy that does it right. One of the standards here at Penn State, you want coaches who understand what the rules are, follow them, and they build from there. Mike is all of that. Okay? Honesty to go with being an excellent coach. And believe me, this 1-8, you know how galling this is for him? Do you realize that he's won 72% of his games in these kind of situations in his career? A long career? That's what this has been like for him. Like, I can't believe this. When you've won, coming into the season, 72% of your games in that situation, you're saying they're going, okay, well, I know how we need to play this. And he loves coaching those situations. I can't wait to play this. Now it's getting to the point like, okay, now you got to start thinking. But I haven't talked at all about this all season. But it does get to a point where, you know what? I've got to say something about this. I didn't feel the need to say anything about it. But the bottom line is, Mike Rhodes would be the kind of guy you'd be hiring if you had the revolving door. Keep him. Well, they're going to keep him anyway. But I'm saying, hey, support him. As a suggestion, it's not you can support anybody you want. It's up to you guys. All right? But you'd be amazed what support means. All right? And like I said, if you had a revolving door, he'd be one of the guys right away. You'd look at it and say, boy, this guy believes in this place. He's a Pennsylvania guy. He badly wants to win. I'm there at practice. I know what kind of strategist he is. I know how he treats the players. Right? That's what I'm looking for in a coach is Mike Rhodes. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a Mike Rhodes. Well, Penn State's got him. They got him. Okay? It's a program that has forever struggled. Nobody knows more than me. Wife asked me last night, how many winning seasons have you done? Because it came up the other day. It was a group of the sports writers got together, and I joined them after Lou Prado's wake. And we were over at Champs. Your picture was up on the wall on the ban list. I don't understand what that means.
Not only for Champs, the sports writers too. Good Lord.
They asked me somebody, it's because I've done this for 43 years. So I know what this has been like. The 43 seasons, I finally sat down. I was asked last night. I said I wasn't sure. So I just count how many winning seasons. Well, I've done 18 winning seasons out of 43. And two additional ones are 500s. So I know how tough the job is. I've been a constant game in and game out witness for 43 years. So I know how tough it is. And I know how tough the competition is. And I do know that the competition at times over the years hasn't exactly done everything according to the book. Not all, but there have been a few over the years that have had their own way of doing it. Well, that's not how the game's played here at Penn State. You get a coach here who plays the game the way it's supposed to be played. I'm talking about off the court, wants his team playing hard on the court. And have you had the results in the Big Ten this year? No. Not making the tournament is a huge blow. There's no getting around it. Right. Did I think in a million years they would be in this spot? No. Last year when they brought it out, I was critical of the format, but I was critical of the format, not thinking about Penn State. I thought Penn State was going to finish somewhere between 7 and 10 in the conference. Dick thought they could win it. But I thought finishing 7 to 10, what does it do for you? Put you in the NCAAs. I thought that's where they'd be. I didn't see this coming. I'm watching in the summer. All it did in the summer was affirm what I thought they could be. Okay. Watching the preseason, felt the same way. Saw the beginning, like all of you. I watched the Purdue game, announced it, went, here we go. Didn't like the first half of the Rutgers game at all. The team was, as I think the exact words I used in college sports is when you've already got a good man in there, which Penn State does, you don't make your job a revolving door. You don't make your job a revolving door. All you do is rebuild all the time. That's all you're doing is rebuilding all the time. You don't have a program. This is their fourth coach in this decade. This decade. Okay. Okay? Yeah. Right? Which means the program, except for 1 year, has been in a constant state of flux in this decade. Everybody, let's meet the new coach. Let's take attendance. There are 3 guys. Well, maybe 5. I got to include Danny and Andy Christos. And I saw Danny, by the way, out in California. Nice. Yeah, he was at the UCLA game. So it was great to see him. And Lisicky was at the UCLA game too, which was great. Yeah. Then a guy came up to me and he says, "You and I have a mutual friend." I said, "Who's that?" I had not met the guy. Yep. He was working for. Who was he working for? It was the USC game. So he was working on the table, doing table stats, and John Cappelletti. He's texting John about, the picture or whatever. So, but again, you need stability in your job, right? That's the first step toward getting you on track. You've got, okay, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, and you can take my opinion and flush it, right? They've already got the right guy. To stabilize this and make it a consistent winner. Because Penn State fans are aching for a consistent winner. You deserve it. Okay? Okay? Penn State fans, all those people have stuck with this program over the years. A lot of people have stuck with it over the years. It isn't easy being a fan when you feel like you're constantly in the underdog spot. But when you've already got the right guy, you don't make your job a revolving door. All that does is lead to instability and, hey, let's start over again. Well, that didn't go right. Well, let's start over again. But that didn't go right. Let's start over again. Fortunately for you, fortunately for a lot of people, Pat Kraft's in charge. Because that's not what he does. Okay? He understands it takes time. Absolutely. Especially with this particular job. I'm just glad that some of the more vocal people aren't in charge, because that door would be spinning. Not good enough. Next guy, not good enough. That guy, not good enough. Oh. So there you go. That's just my opinion. Now we could make you and then I would advocate for your firing.
Me, the head coach? Yeah, sure.
Oh, no. And in fact, I would take great joy in advocating for your firing.
I don't even know what they'd call the student section if I was head coach.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Lousy Lord.
Oh, Lord.
Something like that.
Oh, Lord. Oh, boy. Here we go. Oh, God. Hey. Or Lordy Lord.
Yeah, there you go.
Lordy Lord. Yeah. All right. Or they'll all be wearing masks and go, Jason.
No, that too. As scary as this may be a named head coach.
Yeah. So there you go. That's just, hey.
Yeah.
Do I think they have the right guy? No question in my mind. I have zero doubt about that. None. Big picture, you know, for those who are always advocating change, and it's usually the same people over and over again that advocate for change. Right? When you make your job a revolving door, you've got a problem.
Yeah,
well, this job in this decade has been a revolving door. Every time I turn around, I'm watching somebody else start over. That's what you want? Yeah, I'll give you one that's going to be interesting to watch is Dusty May at Michigan. I think he's a very good coach. Very good coach.
Yeah.
But Florida Atlantic got to the Final Four a couple of years ago. Did a great job with that team. Everybody committed and came back. So I saw that Florida Atlantic team a couple times in person last year in Orlando. They were in that tournament. Right? There are a lot of things about them I really liked. But you know what's interesting? Everybody will tell you it was around it. They lost their fire that second year. Now, they also had changed conferences because they went from Conference USA to the American. But it wasn't the same. It's going to be interesting to see what he does at Michigan. I mean, they've done well this year. There's no getting around it. You know, picking up Danny Wolf was big. Bringing Black Golden with him from Florida Atlantic was big. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But you know, it's down the stretch here. They have not played well down the stretch at all.
No.
And they've got Michigan State coming up this weekend. I would put them in the decided underdog category there. So they're not exactly finishing with a flourish either. But I'm going to be interested to see what he does with it. But he is a good coach. So let's not kid around. He is a good coach. I mean, the Indiana people are ruining the day that they didn't hire him last year.
Sure. Absolutely.
But there's a certain individual and a certain circumstance that kept them a year ago from doing it. And it's not a person in the athletic department.
Yeah.
And since you're wearing a red shirt today, you can explain to everybody why you sabotaged their program.
The guy that fired the man that wore the red sweater helped sabotage that program. Later called himself president.
Well, yeah, but I'll be honest with you. They had gone from great in the 70s, 80s, and
sure
to the early 90s.
Yep. Agreed.
And had fallen back to good to very good.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that with all fairness to Bob Knight.
Yeah.
Because he did some great things there.
Yeah.
But they've been good to very good with a few mediocres thrown in there for the past 30 years.
Yeah, it's...
Right.
Aside from the title game when they lost to Florida, their last Final Four was what, Duke prior to that?
2002.
Yeah, when they played 2002. Yeah, when they lost. Yeah, that was the
then
Florida game.
10 years earlier in 92.
That was Duke. Yep.
That was Duke. Yep. Yeah. He opposed expansion. He opposed expansion. He opposed the Big Ten tournament. Right? This era would have driven him. I mean,
yeah.
This era, he wouldn't have made it. Now, I mean, during his time, he accomplished everything he could accomplish. But
absolutely,
yeah. And that door, in a lot of ways, that job's become a revolving door.
Completely, yeah, absolutely. And you feel like how many times? Oh, they've got their guy. No.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow. Between now and then, I'll be talking to management about whether you'll be back tomorrow. Then I'll find out the same thing I found out all the times. You're actually the son of the owner. No. What? No, she didn't deny it. I can't win.